Hello and welcome everyone to the main event this week. I'm Meeta and I'm really pleased to be joined by our guest today, Amy Gallagher. Hi, Amy.
Hi Meeta. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here.
Well, really good to have you on board, Amy. I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we dig into this all-important topic. So today's webinar is all around eliminating mishires, but the angle that you're going to bring the expertise is that it's going to be data informed. So yes, we're really excited by this because hopefully a data informed approach allows us to use facts and it's not subjective, which means we can improve it.
Yes.
Good. Now, just for everyone jumping in, if you've heard me say this every week, I apologize, but we keep these sessions about 45 minutes. We do that because we know your time is precious, but we also want to make sure that you can take away something that you can apply in your world straight away, just by being in the room today. We also do a recording. It's really important that you can look back, but also share it with your team members, your senior leadership, anyone in your community, because you're here because you know it's important. Not everyone will necessarily be on the same page in the organization, and you know they need to be. So feel free to share this. And when we send you the recording later on, you'll get contact details for Amy and myself as well. So we're in the room today. This is an interactive session. We want you to make this as useful to you as you need it to be. So I'm just going to put a little hello in there. The chat box is that easy. So please let us know if you can hear us, give us a hi. And if you have any thoughts or questions, this is where we want you to share it. We can solve literally your challenge here and now. But if live and in a group session isn't for you, Amy and I are here outside of this session as well to support you. So last point I'm going to make, we have a poll, as many of you know we always do, and that's to get an indication of the temperature of the room. And so we want to know what has been the main reason for mishires in your organization. Is it an incorrect skills match? Is it lack of cultural alignment? Is it that the onboarding and induction process doesn't go well? Could it be that once they're onboarded, support and development isn't really there? Or is it something else? I've actually just had a quick look at the poll. We've got 60% of the room are sitting in skills match challenges.
Huh.
Yeah, 20% lack of cultural alignment, and then the other 20 are saying other. So I hope.
Ah.
So for those that have put other, can we have a little comment about what that other looks like? It'd be really helpful to us if you can tell us what other challenges you're facing, because we know that's not an exhaustive list. Personality issues, okay, and that's really interesting, isn't it? Thank you, Deborah. That's really interesting because Amy, we're talking today about mishires. Can you, I know it seems really obvious, but can you define what you see as being a mishire in an organization? Like if someone's come along today, what will they have experienced?
I like to define a mishire as somebody who has to leave within the first 12 months of being hired.
Okay.
A lot, yes.
Couldn't it?
It does. However, and I think, most of us will have experienced a mishire, perhaps. We don't find out certain things about a candidate, maybe for quite a few months along the way, where it's a bit of an exploration phase that has to go on. Yeah. Likewise, if it's the candidate wanting to leave, they don't wake up one morning saying, I don't like my job, I'm going to resign. It's a process. So it's a process that we need to go through on both sides. And I think anyone who's leaving between being hired and 12 months, that is definitely should be considered a mishire.
Because the seeds of doubt were potentially planted right at the start.
Absolutely. At the start, but it takes time for also people to take action, right? There's a lot of, you say, the doubt that goes on, but taking action can take a lot longer than that. So the seeds of doubt, yes, definitely happen earlier than when the action starts to happen.
That makes sense. So we've said we'll cover a few different areas today. We've spoken about overcoming unconscious bias, and it's interesting, the poll talks about skills. We think of skills as quite definitive, but actually people's perspectives on what they think is important, what's a priority skill, what's a would be nice, what is trainable, what is, all of these factors actually bring unconscious bias into it. So if we were going to start, we're looking at a director. We're going to talk about those accidental managers and directors who, don't even have the capability of hiring or don't have the training. Yeah. But when we're looking at how people are identifying skills in a team, where would somebody start?
So, I mean, in traditional hiring, you know this, Meeta, what happens is you get a CV, okay, which is the perception that somebody wants to put across of themselves based on their experience and their own filters of who they think they are, okay? Yeah. And then, of course, there's the interview process that happens, and hopefully we gain a lot about that person. But and I've done this before. I know I spent a lot of time in corporate recruiting for teams that I was building. And the ones that you immediately seem to have rapport with are the ones that you're like, oh, subconsciously are reminding you of you. It's like, oh, I like this guy, or I like this person,
or someone and like who's already in the organization or in your work.
So, exactly. So we start to almost then have this filter of this person will fit, and we almost start, maybe again without realizing, be less focused on their skills and what they've done and how they've done it. So, and like I say, I can put my hand up and own up to doing that. We've all done it, and it's easy to do it.
Yeah.
So what we have found is when you have a data-informed approach to your hiring process, which means what you're looking at is finding out the talents, the strengths, the less developed areas of somebody, you can use that data to inform you at the very beginning of the process. So you can see, does this person have the talents and the skills that the role requires? It won't be 100%. That's fine. What does this person need to develop? Can those talents be developed? Because certain things within us, we can develop, but maybe developing those things will burn us out, for example.
Well, this is it.
Yeah.
You mentioned the underdeveloped skills, but are they skills that people want to put the time into improving?
Yes, exactly.
And often employers or when interviewers are interviewing, they ask the question, can you do this? Tell me about how you've done it. But they never follow up with and how do you feel about that? How did that impact you? Yeah. Is this something that you'd like? How much of this would you be wanting to do in your next role?
Yeah. And again, what I experienced both personally and observing what happens in organizations is often what we're being asked to develop or asking people to develop are things that they probably don't enjoy doing that much. It's the reason why they're probably not shining in those areas necessarily. So if we're asking people to develop skills that don't come naturally to them and don't motivate them, guess what? They're going to become demotivated. They're going to become unfulfilled, even potentially burnt out.
Yeah.
So we need to be really careful around that side of things.
Okay.
The other thing around a data-informed approach is we can measure with our method what working environment is suitable for them, where they thrive, the type of environment they thrive in. Yeah. So I know that I would thrive in an environment that has less structure, that allows me to be creative, and I have freedom to express myself. I know I left a job after 6 months once, so I was a mishire, because I made a mistake and I went into a company that had lots of structures and rules that they wanted me to follow. And I felt quite restrained and suppressed in that role. I didn't thrive. I didn't enjoy it. I left after 6 months without another job to go to because of the culture, not the role.
And so culture is second in our poll at the moment.
Yes.
And Deborah, one of the people that put other in the poll, mentioned personality challenges. Where does culture and personality come? Because often we think that behaviors reflect culture, but actually, where does personality fit into all that? How can somebody...
Well, we've all got, if we think about personality, you know, we've all got things that are amazing about us, you know, and we've all got maybe the things not so great. So it's so important that we find a culture, a working environment, and the people around us that brings out the best of us. Encourages the best of us.
This is what we celebrate. This is what we don't stand for.
Yeah.
If you're definitive in your culture, people can start to really demonstrate that element of their personality. Exactly. And hopefully work on the elements that don't align.
Yeah.
But if there isn't a really defined culture, well, then people are almost, you know, stabbing in the dark kind of thing. They don't know where to position.
Yeah, because I think there's nothing more damaging really if you're somebody that really wants to shine, but that's being dampened or pushed down because of the culture. Now, that doesn't mean that the culture is wrong. It just means that there's a better culture elsewhere. So culture is such a huge part of recruitment, and we see a lot that is forgotten. And I think that's where many mishires can come about. Yeah.
Well, many of our biggest strapline, and it has been for 30 years, if you would believe we've been going that long, is, you know, we are 80% mindset, attitude versus 20% skills. And we go in to take on a mandate and create success, because we guarantee all of our work 3 months, 100%, and that's financial partnership. Meaning that if we can eliminate mishires forever, you know, that's great, you know, for our clients and for us. However, getting that effective in practice, we have not accepted until we started working with you. We've used personality tests and we've used, you know, PPA, all different kinds of testing. But it's only from last year when we did this approach with you that we were able to actually align data points throughout all of these different stages, as you said, job description, CV, interview stage, all the different stages of the process. And so it worked. I'm very pleased. And we're going to go through, we're going to do some live examples, which will be really good for everyone listening. But is that still the case? Would you say that with because look, we don't do sales pitches in this. We're here to add value. But if we're talking about data-led approaches, you've got a tool, right, that you use to facilitate that. So just tell me a little bit about how that works. I think
and like you just said, we don't. It's not a personality assessment. We don't even like to call it a personality assessment. It's a talent assessment. It's like a point. So somebody does do an assessment, a candidate would do the assessment. You're just collecting data on their talents, their strengths. And it's very positive. It isn't about, let's try and find their weak spots. It's not that at all. It's really about the ethos behind it is when people do what they love, when people do what motivates them, they do their best work. Yeah. So that's what this is about. And within that assessment, once we collect that data, within that assessment, the results will also show the type of environment that's suited to them, the best communication style for them. So what sort of communication style do they respond well to? What should be avoided with them? Also, what their learning style is. So sometimes we've had people saying, I'm not sure if this place is right for me, because in my training and development, it's done in a really kind of creative way. And I don't want to do it like that. I'm theoretical. I want a book. I want a podcast to learn from. Yeah. So even that detail of learning style that is so crucial for a leader, so crucial for HR, gets dismissed a lot, but our method delves into all of this.
All of those elements will impact somebody being successful or failing. Yes. I've got a really interesting statistic, which is apparently something like, here we have 51% of new UK hires either leave or require extra support because of mishires. Wow. 16% of new employees left or were dismissed within 12 months of their start date. 16%.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah. So
to that, I mean,
let's talk about the costs. So how do you define what the cost is of a mishire? I know I have my
Yeah, we follow one which is from the Harvard Business Review. And it's 2 to 3 times the person's salary that you hired, plus 20% of that, which includes things like the cost of the onboarding, the cost of recruitment, the cost of what development they had. That's the financial cost.
I take it further.
Yeah, I know you go up to.
We say 3 to 5 times annual salary, and the reason for that is, first of all, it's all the costs that you spent 12 months of time, effort, training, salary. So first of all, there's that. You're not getting that back. But then also it's the cost of rehiring again, not just necessarily the recruitment fees, but again, the time, the effort, the training, and also the intangible costs, team morale, trust and confidence in the managers, client relationships when people come and go. That trust and confidence you can't put a price on, and it impacts culture. So you want to be known as an employer of choice. Let's get that attrition down. If 16% is the standard, let's work on looking at what yours is, and then let's improve that.
And we've been working with a client recently, actually, where we did a bit of an audit, and as much as they knew there was a level of attrition, when we actually put those numbers to it, the shock of, oh my goodness, this is how much it is costing us year on year, because people are leaving within 12 months. So sometimes as well, even though there's recognition of mishires, I don't know how much cost is being assigned to that attrition as well. And then going, this needs to be a priority. Imagine the money we can save,
Penny saved is a penny. The amount of money wasted, and being at the rock face of hiring, and we work with clients who hire directly, and their wins and challenges, we help train and improve their approaches, their internal teams who do the recruitment, but we also recruit for clients. And what we try to do is ensure, as I said, with the guarantees, but that's not just about, hey, we'll do this. It's about staying on that journey. It's about not just placing somebody, but that period between hiring and starting is a really difficult time. People sometimes are not even kept in touch with. They're not even checked in with, and they'll fall off, and start date comes and they'll get a phone call saying, I found something else. And it'd be like, what happened? So that trust and confidence, that building of partnership with a new employee starts at interview stage. So, we're looking at the skills match. That's still the top area. And I always say people love to give a good interview, and then somebody comes in on day one and they think, this isn't what I was asked to do. This isn't what, and the trust is gone, and it can't really be rebuilt because it was never there to start with at day one. So how are people, employers listening to this here today, how are they going to start to identify the right skills? And we talk about a scorecard approach. How can we get that tangible clarity in a skills scorecard approach, which then allows us to use data to get
the way that we build that into our method is we work with the recruiter, the hiring manager, to say, right, for this role, what are the key competencies that you believe are crucial to performing well in this role? And what we can do is we can build out a profile, a job profile within our system that highlights these competencies. And within the assessment the candidate does, they're actually answering questions about all of the competencies that are available. And you can see then how well matched they are to each of the competencies. So if, say, it was an HR manager role, we would have chosen those competencies, and then once they filled in their assessment, we can see what their overall matches to the profile based on competencies. So it's like a scorecard. And then you can go into each of those competencies and say, right, they've got a 90% match to coaching, but they've only got a 60% match to persuasiveness. So then you can start benchmarking against other candidates and saying, right, so that's okay. We feel we can help them develop that competency of persuasiveness, or maybe they only score 30% and say, I'm not sure they're right for the role, so it can really start informing. So a scorecard's a nice way to look at it. Actually, we just look at it from a competency viewpoint.
Yeah, and I always think of the job description as a form of a scorecard. I have to say that I'm a bit of a pain in the butt. So whenever we onboard a role and a manager, line manager or somebody in HR says, here's the job description, I will receive it, but I will not take that for granted. That shape of the person that organization wants, have they in real time gone back and revisited the whole organizational plan, journey, people in the team, cultural alignment, short-term and long-term objectives for that team and therefore the organization? If that has all been considered in this job description, then that shape is right. But more often than not, that job description comes from a file that's always been the job description for that role.
Absolutely.
And so if you haven't got the most relevant, up-to-date version of that JD, there may be a lot that's still the same, but there will be changes that need to be reflected. You're never going to get the right scorecard to start with.
You won't. And I think it's the understanding the implications of that very first step. We need somebody, let's write the job description. And, and again, from experience, often, sometimes recruitment is knee-jerk. Like we've got a real instant need to recruit somebody. Quickly write the job description. And there's not enough even thought at that stage that goes into it. And then you say, but then you look at attrition and the cost of a mishire. Come on, let's get it right at the first step.
And it's quite interesting when organizations think about external providers versus internal or line managers. Yeah. That's the element, I think, that we look at it from a cost perspective, but what about the headspace? What about the objectivity? That is very difficult to be able to create the space to do when you're in it. So I guess that's an intangible cost again. That can then lead to mishires. So we've built the scorecard. We've done it right. We've built that look. So we've seen what the missing piece looks like. We've got the job description right. Line manager agrees. HR and hiring team agree. The recruiter, internal or external, everyone's on the same page. We've got a scorecard. What's next? How do we get the data? What's next?
So what's next is what we are providing is we get the candidates to do like a 20-minute assessment. Yeah, I hope that's what you're looking for. We get them to do the 20-minute assessments, and then we use the results of that to see how well they fit against the job description, against the job profile, the competencies, the working environment. And actually, what it also helps is it helps particularly that second stage of interview where you're saying, right, so these couple of areas might be the areas we need to, as the hiring manager, delve into more. Yeah. And so, because sometimes I think second interviews, what happens is it's like you need to meet a few other people in the organisation and they get asked the same questions again that were asked in the first interview. Yeah. But what we're finding is if you can go, right, okay, we need to delve into this area and this area based on the data, based on the feeling we got from the first interview, that process just for both parties, right, becomes just a bit more successful and professional and informed for both of them, because the candidate also needs to know that it's a good yes for them, right?
Absolutely. The recruitment process is a two-way street. The candidate is choosing you as much as you are choosing which candidate. And it's a branding exercise. It's marketing your brand. And as we know, every mishire that your organization has is out there in the world telling other people, no, don't work there. I have a bad experience. Yes. So there are so many layers of importance of impact and reputational improvement versus damage. Yeah. I think for people watching, having a tool which is all encompassing and can give that real data is really important. If someone's watching today and says, look, I may want to go down that route, but as I'm sitting today, I've got a process starting tomorrow. Yeah. How can somebody build a basic scorecard that allows them to have removed the unconscious bias? And I'm thinking about, aligning the same questions and the same process. What would you suggest is the starting point for somebody in the room today who's having challenges with skills?
I think I'll go back to what we said, which is being really, really clear on what is the main accountabilities of the role that you are hiring for. So what is this role a part of? What is this role going to help the company? How is it going to help the company grow? How does it, what impact will it have on the overall company? Yeah. And then also look at, if they're the hire there, so look at that. So what are the main competencies I'm looking for in the person? So how I would, if I didn't have a data-informed tool, I would be writing out, right, I need this person to have persuasiveness. I need this person to have influence and skills or sales or whatever it might be. Yeah. I would also be looking at, right, what culture do we have? If I look at, why am I thriving in this culture? This culture is unstructured. This culture doesn't have many rules. It wants people to come in and make their own rules. Yeah. Ask the types of questions around that.
And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because you think that candidates and future employees want clarity, they want structure. But even a client I met with last week, we were talking about a transformation project on their organization. They said, we need to hire people that thrive on ambiguity. They need to be able to do the job, but they need to be flexible and not struggle under movement and change. And I was like, we've always looked at it from a be definitive, be this, be that, job description, black and white. Nothing's black and white.
No, it's not. That's interesting. I think that's
skill,
Yeah. I would also, you need to really look at what have you already got in your team? Because the other thing we can do is hire many of the same people, okay? So it's like, right, we've got that person and that person. What skill gaps do I think there currently are in my team? And go looking for it.
So it's not clones of each one, but actually starting with the organizational objectives, which reflect on your department, then break that down into skills, culture, behaviors and attitudes, then map your people. What have we already got in here? And don't be afraid. And from appraisal and continuing support and development, from your team the bits they love, the bits they're good at, that if you when you have that chat, if I can get someone to do this bit for you, you can fly doing the other bit. So actually it's an opportunity, isn't it, to when you're hiring?
Yeah. And often you probably see it as well, Meeta. When you read a job description, I sometimes think you're looking for 3 people because one person isn't going to be able to do all of this.
Yeah.
So when it is like that, and I get it, budgets and everything else that comes into play here. So if I were to break down this job description and these skills, what do I already have? What's missing? What do we really need to grow, and go in and focus in on those? And be very mindful of those in your interview process.
So don't just look at the role, look at everyone around the role. And when we onboard, our questions are all around who's in the team, what makes that team tick, what will people say is, their top 3 reasons why they want to work for this organization. What would I say needs a bit of work on? Because the candidate is going to hear that all already. So the sooner you bring out the warts and all in your interview process and onboarding, the more they realize they're part of the growth journey. It's not the perfect environment that they're joining, and they understand what that looks like, what that growth journey is going to look like, and they're part of that team.
Yeah. I mean, as well, it's important as well, if you're going to be their manager, their leader as well, it's that question of, can I lead this person? Can I inspire them? Can I get the most out of them? And I know you won't get all of it in the interview, but that's another area to focus in on during the interview process. How do you like to be led? What sort of You know, what sort of manager do you thrive under? What sort of manager demotivates you? Those types of questions, I think are really, really important, because you might get an absolute superstar, but maybe leadership style, you have to really consider that. And again, see whether it's a match made in heaven or not, you know.
Absolutely, and I think that's where management training comes in. And there's actually the next area is around the accidental manager.
Yes.
And so, what would you define as an accidental manager?
I see it so much. I've seen it so much throughout my career. An accidental manager to me is somebody who is technically brilliant at their job. They're an expert in what they do, and because they perform brilliantly technically in their role, they're immediately gone, great, you'll get promoted. You're now going to start managing people. Yeah. And these poor people have never received leadership training or even basic management training. Yeah. And I think some people are natural leaders and they probably need less training than others, but we've all got room to improve, right? No, and then there's others that it just isn't, it's another skill set.
Completely. You know, again, old school 9 to 5 manager mindset is, you know, it's the HR, it's the people coming and going, it's the what have you done this week? But it's not, it's about nurturing, developing, inspiring, you know what, empowering. That's my word that I always go back to, is nobody wants to be a micromanager, nobody wants to be micromanaged. Let's give everyone the tools and then the space and then the trust to flourish. And so if there's an accidental manager, they've never been taught how to lead or develop. No. And how are they actually going to bring out the best in their people?
Exactly. And actually then the other impact of that, and I'm seeing it with a client I'm currently working with, which is they then, because of the lack of management and leadership training, any little people problem gets pushed over to HR. So HR are then just continually firefighting issues that really a well-trained leader could manage day to day.
And the challenge of that is that the people challenges impact the work challenges, and sometimes it's the work challenges that bring out the people challenges. So it needs to be a manager that can see both. HR haven't got the eyes or the visibility on the whole picture.
Exactly.
And therefore not making an informed decision. So it is really important, and we do a lot of work around that. But not only the day-to-day, but like what defines the skills that we need as an organisation to get us from where we are to where we need to be. So we were talking about bringing a live example or a study that you've worked on, and for the last couple of areas that we said we'll cover, I think going through this will really bring that to life. So give me some insight. Is it? Well, I shouldn't ask. Is it the client that we worked with you on? We don't need to know.
No, we won't say. So basically, we got down to 2 shortlisted candidates, and I'd been supporting the client through the interview process as well. We got down to the 2 final clients, and final interview was myself. And the two senior hiring managers. And part of the interview was they come in and they do a presentation. So first candidate comes in, and actually they needed quite a lot more development than the second candidate. However, they came in and did an amazing presentation, very vibrant, very upbeat and dynamic in the way that they were in their presentation, which actually was quite different to actually how what personality came through when they were answering their questions. So actually that was presenting was obviously one of their big skills, which was great. Second person comes in, much more experience, a lot more, fewer development areas, less dynamic, less vibrant, but still a very, very good presentation. So the interview's finished, and when I'm doing the discussions afterwards, let's, do a debrief, see where all of our heads are at. And both were saying, do you know what? Just loved the vibrancy and the energy of the first person. And I asked why, and they're like, well, and it was their bias coming through. There were a few other things that were said, but that I can't say, but bias was definitely coming through here. And I had to gently remind them, remember when we looked at their data, remember some of the development areas that candidate number one had.
Yeah.
We also then looked, because the hiring managers also did the assessment and said, you guys aren't brilliant at developing employees. So if you hire candidate number one, who's going to do the developing here?
Yeah.
So it made them pause. You know, we're not saying data is black and white, but it just made them pause and say, actually, we're being led by somebody we like, rather than can they do the job and impact the growth of this company. So they both took a step back, and they ended up going with candidate number two, who they probably wouldn't have gone with if they hadn't had that pause and that data in the background to remind them. And that person is absolutely thriving now. And I've had a call going, thank you, they were a brilliant hire.
That is fantastic. So it's about understanding not just the individual in silo, but actually their impact with the managers. So actually an organization that's doing this also has to measure their managers and get data on the management team, essentially even the rest of the team. Because we recommend that. Once you've got the manager, and then you've also got team fit. You know, you talked about learning styles, but team fit is really important. If you've got lots of doers but no leaders, everyone's going to have lots of energy but nowhere to channel it. You know, they're all going to be chasing their tails. So this data-led approach, it's so interesting. We think we're just measuring the new employee, but we're not. We're getting looking at data on everyone around.
On the team and the manager, the leader of that team as well. Yeah. So they were being, without realize, they didn't realize it. They were going for the person they liked. It's almost like the person that they would like to go and have a drink with on a Friday night. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of vibe rather than...
Yeah, I think that culture can play a big part in interview processes because often we have a manager there that needs a role filled, but there's also a lack of something in the culture of the organization that probably because it's not been defined properly, it's not been kept alive properly, it's not been trained and supported and encouraged, but they see somebody who fits that box and thinks, they'll be really good for that as well.
Yes.
So they stop looking at what they're hiring them for, and they start looking at the bigger impact that they want them to have. And all of a sudden, you know, it's like pin the tail on the donkey time, you know. It just doesn't add the value that it needs to. And then the falling apart of when people join is because when they get to the reality of it and they're in that team, it's great if you could be positive, but your manager's not looking over your shoulder 24/7. You've got to get on with the job. And then the team starts to have impact. And then there's personality challenges. And before you know it, they're walking out the door. Look, we've covered a lot, Amy, around the hiring process. I'd love to talk to you about data-led support and development, because if we're talking 12 months, chances are the seed was planted. But let's say great interview process, data-led decisions. Somebody was onboarded really well because, you know, there's all bells and whistles when they first join. What then happens between month 3 and month 12? Like what can organizations be doing to improve that?
I mean, I know some people listening might go, of course, that's basics. That's what I'm doing. Sadly, a lot of this isn't happening within business, which is you have regular one-to-ones with that person. And I get a lot of managers going, we're always doing updates though. I ask them how they are every day. And it's like, that's very different to a formal catch up. And you decide weekly, fortnightly, monthly, whatever works. Regular updates, objectives, goals, stretch them. So you know that I always used to give what I would call stretch objectives, but stuff they enjoy, stuff that will motivate them and fulfill them, especially if you know they're a star, you know, give them some stretch, let them know that they are valued. And I think you can do that, like I say, by just giving them your time. And some of that is a formal process of one-to-ones, objectives, goals, feedback. And for me, continuous learning and feedback should be part of a culture. If you want a high-performing team, that should be part of a culture. Sadly, it isn't in a lot of places.
It's become more informal.
Yes, and do you know what? And I think everyone could sometimes shy away from them. And I know, and I've worked in companies where it's so arduous, the amount of kind of admin that there is, but it doesn't have to be like that. It can still be a dynamic way of developing your teams whilst recording it. And we've got so much new technology around now to be able to do that. It doesn't have to be arduous and very boring and admin led. So the person, why do people stay in companies? They stay there because they feel valued, because they're happy going to work, and they're happy that they feel like they're adding something, they're part of something good, you know.
And being developed, you know.
And being developed, exactly. So, and I think it really is, that's where, as well, we spoke about the leadership and management training. That's what you learn in that training as well, isn't it? The basics of how do you develop somebody and how is it done? And once you start doing it, it just becomes habitual. It becomes part of what your job, what your role is as a leader.
And any organization that has had managers trained way back at the start, they need continual professional development of their management skills, especially if it's a hybrid organization, because managing hybrid mindset and impact is completely different to managing people in one environment. You know, and it takes a different set of skills that might need to be honed and learned for managers as well.
Yes, definitely. I also think you don't it's just that receiving feedback from your employees as well, and allowing them to be honest, like, what's working for you? How can it be better? Do you like the way that I'm doing this with you? And allowing that person to feel safe that they can honestly answer that, you know? And I don't, because sometimes we're just too focused on the numbers and the targets and how are we going to get there? But ask the people for feedback, ask your teams for feedback, and let them know that it's okay for them to be honest in that feedback too.
And, you know, I always think that, you know, the best time to get this right was at the beginning. But if you've got a challenge now that should have been then, the next best time is now. Let's see, can we draw a line? If you didn't do these tests at the start, do them 6 months in. You don't know. There is always an opportunity to fix it. It's never over till it's over. So
totally.
there is ways to save these scenarios as well.
There is ways to save it. Sometimes it's a conversation, you know.
What with the follow through, right? It's the conversation with the
and action. Yes.
God, Amy, I feel like, you know,
we've done a lot, haven't we?
We have, because it's such a broad topic, the hiring, the onboarding. I mean, this is a life cycle of an employee, really, that we've covered.
It is, that we've gone through.
But I love that, you know, your approach, the data-led approach means that the one thing I haven't mentioned is it removes subjectivity. Because one of the biggest, as you said, with your clients that wanted to hire somebody because of unconscious bias, but actually also for employees in an organization, if they can see that, you know, yes, we go by our own interview process, but we also bring data into it. It feels really professional, really smart, forward thinking.
Yeah, I agree.
People feel seen and understood, not misunderstood. And just by knowing that you're part of an organization that takes the time and invests in actual fact, they are going to have a fair and supportive environment to grow in. And I think that in and of itself is priceless. So just by doing the process, even if you don't put it into it and you know, just use it in parts, it will say a lot for you as an employer. And I think that matters to everyone.
I agree with you. Yes.
So
I agree.
Get on the journey. It doesn't have to be all encompassing. Start with with some data points. Start with,
we just lost you there, Meeta.
Outside. Oh, yeah. Have I gone? Have I still gone?
You did for a little bit, but you're back. You're back.
Okay. Well, we've had a busy room. We've had everyone in all the way through, which is really good and really positive. Sorry that my tech messed up.
It was only just then. It was only a few seconds.
Okay. What I would say is that Amy is very much available outside to talk to anyone in the room,
absolutely,
live now or outside of that, or reach out to me. Amy and I and Gallagher Gray, we're already working together with clients where we've created
I think Meeta's gone again. If everyone's happy to put into the chat, has Meeta frozen for you, or is it just me? If so, I think we might just end the call because I'm not sure she'll come back. Thanks, Deborah. Yeah. Thanks, Amy. Okay. Thank you all for joining us. I think Meeta's gone now. So have a good day, everyone. And as Meeta said, if you want to get in touch about anything, please let us know. And I think Meeta will pass on my details to everyone as well. Thank you all for joining. Have a good day. Hiya. Don't worry. I think I might still be on and I don't know how to come off. Oh, you did. Okay. Okay. Don't worry. I just said to everyone, look, technical issues. I just said they were fine. I asked if it was just me that couldn't hear you or if it was them, and all of them said it. Is yes. Yeah. Where do I see the poll? Oh, the polls. Yes, of course I will. Let me do that. Oh, they have said if there was a few thank yous. There was a few thank yous because I sort of said thank you all for coming, and yeah. Yes. Lovely. Don't worry. That's good. And if they stayed on, because I was like, oh, I wonder how many drop-offs do you get? Joins. Watches live, you mean? Yes. Exactly. How interesting. Yeah. And you know what? Some people might watch it on, if they're in the office today, they'll watch it on their journey home or whatever. Do you know what I mean? No, don't worry. I'm just going to send you. I thought it was really good. Did you? We covered a lot. So, I mean, I think people will get one or two things that they can take away from that, hopefully, Yes, yeah, we did. And I think, and you know what? It's hard not to when you're talking about mishires, isn't it? It's really hard not to, because you can kind of go into, but I think it was relevant because you guys do leadership and like you're still part of the whole employee cycle, aren't you? So, yeah. Me too. Don't want him in business. I know. I agree with you. I'm just not like, when I'm working with clients, I go deep with them. Do you know what I mean? And I'm very holistic. Otherwise I'd be like, I'll take the money, but get somebody else to go in and just do the bit that we said we're going to do. Do you know what I mean? No, they won't. No. Yeah. No. Yeah. And that I think people want to know that you care about them, and that your expertise is the whole thing. It's not just recruiting. It's not just here's an assessment, you know? Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Really. They are very different. Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I used to, Meeta, and I had to stop. It was burning me out. Ah, there you go. There you go. Yeah. Yes. I agree. I agree. Honestly, I talk about that a lot with like individual coaching clients, and I'm like, I was so in my masking because that's all I was being modeled in the workplace. I thought I could only win because it's not, even though it's not about winning, or be seen if I could be one of the boys. And then actually, when my feminine energy came in, was when I was lead coaching my teams, and so it did come out then. So I was like, I don't have to be this like, yeah, so happier. Yeah, doesn't. It's enjoyable. Yeah. Did you? Yeah. You walked away. No, she would annoy you. Yes, I agree. But look, I always say when we walk away from things, you're making space for something that's right. That's the way to look at it. And it's so true. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's been a pleasure. Not at all. Let's hope they both of us can benefit. If not, it's just the energy, isn't it? I don't expect things immediately from stuff like that. It's just people will, they'll go, oh, I remember that. It's, yeah. Yes, that's a good idea. Yes, that would be nice. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I really like that idea. Yes. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, just let her know about Robin. That's fine. At Sue Kelly at Morgan. Yes, yes. Great. Absolutely have. Yes. Yeah. Which one was he? Oh, he was the tall black guy. Yeah. He's all about millennials. Yeah, he'll be interesting, I think. Yeah. Yes, I agree. I agree. Yes. And it, like you say, it's like it's going in a different way. Tell me how many misfires you've done. I'll calculate it for you. Da, 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 da. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that would be nice. Okay. So once it's do you do anything else around? Because obviously, if and in terms of like what comes out, do you do like sound bites or stuff like that? Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Oh, yeah, nice. I'll share all of that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Good idea. I know they charge a fortune. I know. I bet quality content. Yeah. Yeah. Are you? Yeah. Good for you. How can I help? Do you know what they got recommended to me, because I don't like cold outreach being done to me. However, we have been working with an agency and they're really pretty, I think they're not expensive. They're 600 quid a month, and they do all of this, like it is outreach stuff for us on LinkedIn. And we have had a few people come back to us and go, that sounds great, come have a call. So they're a small little agency. They're really lovely. The guy who heads up Spoilio, quite a young guy, but really genuine. He's got Teresa, who works for South Africa. So she does all it. So you just get a message that is, and they're all about, you don't talk about you talk about them to begin with, you know. But what they'll do is they'll connect and they'll say, so we've done it with, right, we want to do SMEs going through growth phases. They're now on my profile contacting private equity firms. So, but you just find a message and then they'll message once and they'll message twice and 3 times. So, you know, some people are just going to be like, oh my God, another LinkedIn message, but it's going to be, and it's 600 quid a month. No. Do you want me to send over his details? Yeah. All right, I will do. Yeah. And I just like their vibe. They're not, they want to work with businesses like ours as well. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I'll send it. You can just have a chat with them and see, there might be something there. Yeah, no problem at all. All right. Thanks, Meeta. Thank you for having me. You too. Bye. Bye. Bye.